and he is our revered boss all the time. And that applies to all the Buddhists around the world and all the democracy activists around the world. In that sense, His Holiness is a true democrat. And remembering legendary George Fernandes, he is also a democracy activist and also a great friend of Tibetan people. I think I'm quoting George Fernandes here. I'm not suggesting that you all do this. So when Tibet was occupied, and His Holiness and 80,000 Tibetans had to flee from Tibet to India, so George Fernandes was in Mumbai. Then he was so agitated, he called some of his friends to go and submit a memorandum at the Chinese consulate in Mumbai. He called the consulate and said, we are coming here with a petition. Then finally, when the day came to submit the petition, from few people, it turned out to be 1,000 people who went to the Chinese consulate in Mumbai. But then when they reached there, the door, the windows, everything was shut. And then when he realized that the consulate will not be open, they are not going to accept the memorandum. So he shouted a few times, then he got the loudspeaker, shouted a few times. Then finally he thought, okay, he got this idea because he saw some officials sneaking out from the window. So he sent one of his friends to collect a lot of eggs and another friend to get a portrait of Mao Zedong. Now, I'm not recommending you do this. Then obviously they did what they had to do. And then the George Fernandes, the mentor, as you mentioned, Manohar Lohia, he said, that's a stupid mistake you made, George, for doing that. But then the Chinese government sent a protest letter to the Indian government saying, you have heard the sentiments of the Chinese people, so we need an unconditional apology from the Indian government. The Pandit Nehru at that time wrote back to Chow En Lai. He said, look, I am a Prime Minister of India, but we have a political party system. This George Fernandes and the political party is a different party, so I have no control over them. Chow En Lai wrote back and said, I don't give a damn about your political party system, but I want an unconditional apology. Otherwise, for 100 years, we will neither forgive and forget you. And that day, George Fernandes said, I had to take side, and I had to take the side of His Holiness the Dalai Lama for good. So since that day, George Fernandes regarded himself as a true friend of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and true friend of the Tibetan people. Now, I think there are many Tibetans in this room. On behalf of all the Tibetans, I can say he's not just a true but a rare friend. Whenever we are in trouble here in Delhi, we used to have plenty of troubles. When we were in Delhi College, we used to go to Chinese embassy near Chanakya police station. Then we used to land up in, as we know, all the activist places like prison, things like that. So we used to go to our trusted friend George, and then we always say, "Please help us." He was at times he was minister, at times he was member of parliament. Not only he used to listen to us, he always tells his secretary to write a note to the concerned authority. Not only write a note, then he calls himself whether he received the note and Tibetans should be released. Then he will go himself personally get Tibetans released. At one time, Chinese Prime Minister was here. A lot of Tibetans were arrested. He himself went to the Supreme Court and appealed for the release of Tibetans. When Tibetans were released, he led the march next day. But then the difference, again, about George Fernandes ji was that, again, he's rare. Because when he became the defense minister, his support for Tibetan people remained the same. Normally, once you're in an official position, once you're in government, they shy away a bit. But we could still approach him. He still came, despite a lot of debate within the government, he came to Tibetan events here in Majnuga Tila, Tibetan camp in Delhi. And he received His Holiness the Dalai Lama. See, in that sense, he was a true friend. And at that time, he did make a controversial statement also. He said, Pakistan is not our adversary, but China is. And then he came under a lot of pressure within the government for saying that. But again, he did not shy away from saying all those things and doing what he actually believed. Now, he didn't do it out of sympathy for Tibetan people per se. He had sympathy for all the refugees and all the marginalized people around the world. He was similarly concerned with Tamils. In fact, the Burmese activists, as Carl mentioned, when we used to go to meet George Fernandes, Burmese activists were living in his official residence. So he was that engaged and involved as a person, as a leader. In that sense, he was also a true Democrat. And more than that, he really felt that Tibet was and is a core issue for India. He sincerely felt, and he strongly advocated, that after the invasion and occupation of Tibet, China came to the border of India, hence we have the longest border dispute between India and China. He sincerely felt that. He sincerely felt that Tibet was vital as an environment for whole of Asia, particularly for India. As we know, the 10 major rivers of Asia flow from Tibet. Indus and Satyarthi River from India, from Tibet to India to Pakistan. Brahmaputra River from Tibet to India to Bangladesh. Salween and Mekong River from Tibet all the way to Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, all the way to, we know, Vietnam. And Yangtze River and Yellow River. Yellow River, the cradle of Chinese civilization, start from Tibet. So Tibet is a major source of fresh water. And then there are some experts who say that before, wars were fought over land. Nowadays, wars are fought over energy. Soon, wars will be fought over water. And Tibet is the origin of fresh water and 10 major rivers which provide fresh water for more than 1 billion people. And also Tibet is called the third pole. After Antarctica and Arctic, Tibet has the third highest reserve of ice. The difference being from Antarctica and Arctic, when they melt, it goes to ocean. But as far as Tibet ice is concerned, when they melt, it provides fresh water for all the major rivers. So hence, Tibet issue is not just the issue of 6 million Tibetans. Environmentally, it's an issue for whole of Asia and more than 1 billion people. And geopolitically, it's a major issue because you have the two largest populated countries in the whole world, China and India, facing each other over the border of Tibet. And spiritually, as His Holiness mentioned, Buddhism is one of the most ancient civilizations. And Tibetans can take pride in saying this, and His Holiness always says this, that the best preserved text and teaching of Buddha is in the Tibetan literature now. And India obviously is our guru because we learn Buddhism from India. But Tibetans take great pride in saying that we are the best chelas. And with, yes, disciples. And with His Holiness as our leader and as our teacher, you can clearly see we are the best disciple. So in that sense, George Fernandes truly believed the Tibet issue is not just the issue for Tibetans. It is the issue for India. It is the issue for Asia. It is the issue for the whole world. That's why he was committed till the end. In that sense, he was a true friend, a rare friend, much beloved, and he was a true Democrat. People like him are very rare in this world. And today, I think it's a great and important occasion to remember him. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama always says, always advises us, always keep your old friends and remember your old friends and make new friends. And George Fernandes will always be a friend of Tibetans, friends of refugees, a friend of marginalized people around the world, and friend of democracy activists around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for these very beautiful words. And now may I invite Dr. Ash Narain Roy, Director, Institute of Social Sciences, to give a vote of thanks, please.
His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Dr. Lobsang Sangay, Carl Gershman, Anselmo Lee, Melinda de Jesus, Dr. George Matthew, and very distinguished invitees and friends. My task this morning is far from easy. How does one thank someone like the Holiness, who is the embodiment of compassion, peace, and love, as well as a source of happiness for the millions? There is a character in Henrik Ibsen's immortal play, An Enemy of the People, and it says, "The strongest man is the one who stands alone." I think His Holiness is that man who, even Gandhiji told us to say no to something which is unacceptable. It is therefore not enough to say thank you. It is amazing how these two words that mean so much can seem so little. The simple phrase of thank you would pale and diminish in sheer enormity of gratitude we owe to His Holiness. We are greatly blessed by his graceful presence and message. We gratefully recall his visit to the Institute in 2010, which Dr. George Matthew alluded to. What a mesmerizing lecture that he gave. All along, it has been his limitless love and his concern for humanity that have guided institutions like ours. His Holiness' life and mission has been one of hope. I thank him for his kind presence and blessings. I must also say just 2-3 lines about Shri George Fernandes, who we know has all along remained a rebel against authority. A knight in shining armor would be the best way to describe him. In the 50s and 60s, he became a household name. He was able to galvanize mass workers, organize radical activism against the establishment. Today, because of his ill health, he may be forgotten by some, but his legacy stands tall. Thanks are due to Dr. Lobsang Sangay for his brilliant speech. I think he indeed deserves where he belongs today. Mr. Carl Gershman is an old friend of the Institute. It is his vision and leadership that has brought NED to where it stands today. We are thankful for his support in organizing this conference. I wish to also express my profuse thanks to Mr. Anselmo Lee and Ms. Melinda de Jesus for their kind support. Let me just take 1 minute of you, since we are here to discuss strengthening democracy. Across Asia, we have the trappings of democracy: elections, parliament, separation of power. But many countries have institutions without authority. As Larry Diamond rightly says, advance of freedom across the world is swinging in the wrong direction. Maybe after the fiesta, the hangover. Democracy is in recession, he says. What is worrying is that this recession is visible in large democracies. Democracy is not about verbal fights
or political grandstanding. It is about collaboration and deliberation. This is exactly what we are here. And I believe that it is not just a nudge and wink that will do. It will have to be much more proactive. I am sure the deliberations over the next 2 days will provide a lot of answers and perhaps leave a lot of questions unanswered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Roy. We will now break for a tea break for half an hour. And for all the participants who have not registered yet, there is a registration table outside. And His Holiness, a message. His Holiness says a message from the children of the streets of Delhi and for all of us present here, which reflect our thoughts and expressions and what we all stand for over here. अब कहीं कोई गम ना हो, कोई आँख अब नम ना हो. दिलों में प्यार कम ना हो, दिलों में प्यार कम ना हो, चाहे हम हो या हम ना हो, चाहे हम हो या हम ना हो. So let there be no tears, let there be no sadness, whether we remain or not. With that prayer, let's say.
I'll just do it.
Okay.